morning and welcome to the Sunday Project here at Stop Betting Sports. I want to start today by letting you know that we've had some technical issues. Usually everybody is off of the screen, and unfortunately this has been set up differently. If you'd like to change your name, keep yourself anonymous, please do that. We will not be live streaming today's session. So I'm going to continue now. Okay, just wanted to give everyone the heads up. So I'm Deb. I'm an advocate in prevention of gambling harms. This is a space where we have a conversation about what's happening in the gambling industry. If you are someone concerned about your own gambling or a family member of a gambler, we aim to provide you with some information today. If you've been with us before, welcome back. If you're new, welcome in. So let's introduce our panel. We have some really good people, great heads in the space here today, very exciting. First, we have Mr. Dan Field, who has over 15 years in the field, helping individuals and families who've been affected by gambling harms. He also teaches at USC and is working in prevention space, going into schools now, talking to youth about gambling harms. Really isn't much this guy does not do. He also makes brilliant coleslaw. Next, we have Mr. Mark Lefkowitz, the sage. Mark has over 30 years in the business of helping problem gamblers and their families. Mark has created programs and is known nationwide for his work in the field, and also has over 43 years in recovery from gambling himself. We've got Mr. Jared Campbell. He is a father, number one. He is an ex-professional football player, a comedian, an actor. I mean, what else doesn't he do here? And a compulsive gambler, offering him his support here, anchoring at SBS. We're so grateful to have you, Jared. Mr. Bob G, a compulsive gambler with 16 years since he last gambled, a devoted advocate helping others who are struggling constantly with problem gambling. He is a man with a plan, a man on a mission to get the word out there. Are you a fan or a customer? And we're delighted to have our special guest here today. We have Mr. Matt Zarb Cousins, who is the founder of Gamban, the app that you can download on your phone to prevent you from gambling. And also, let's see if we have, is he here? I'm just going to check if he's here already. We're meant to have a special guest here. I can't see him yet, but we are meant to have, he is coming in. Mr. Rob Minnick, he's coming in. I think he got the time wrong because he's in a different state, but he's coming in as well. Rob is a huge voice in the space of prevention and recovery, and shares his actual recovery daily online as an influencer now in the prevention space. So we have some really good, rich intelligence in the room today on this side of the game here, and so grateful to have you all. Let's get on. There's some important things to talk about today. Once again, please feel free to change your name. Please do not take yourself off camera or put yourself on camera. Okay, let's start with what's been going on in the news this week. There's been some very interesting news stories, certainly related to Kalshi and Polymarkets, but we're going to start with some stuff going on with relating to advertising in the gambling industry, and that's kind of our theme today. So take it away, Mark.
Thanks so much, Deb. Good morning.
Mark, you might want to turn yourself up a bit or bring yourself closer.
Okay, did you guys all hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, cool. Good morning to all my West Coast people. Good afternoon to all the East Coast people. This is Mark Lefkowitz, your Stop Betting Sports newscaster. Sports betting companies are ramping up their media strategies at an unprecedented pace, transforming how fans experience sports and how they're encouraged to participate. Major players like FanDuel and DraftKings are leading the charge, pouring billions of dollars into advertising and partnerships designated to embed betting directly into the sports culture. What was once confined to commercials is now woven into broadcast, studio analysis, and even commentary during games. Viewers today aren't just watching sports, they're being invited to bet on them in real time. From live odds displayed during games to sponsored betting segments hosted by former athletes, the line between sports coverage and gambling promotion is becoming increasingly blurred. Networks and leagues are partnering closely with sportsbooks, creating an ecosystem where betting is no longer a side activity, but part of the game and a central feature. And the push doesn't stop on television. On digital platforms, these companies deploying highly targeted media and marketing strategies. Social media feeds are filled with betting tips, influencers, and promotional content tailored to individual users. Push notifications alert customers to limited time odds boosts or risk, which is to me amazing, and I'll talk about in a minute, risk-free bets, oftentimes to coincidize with key moments in a game when emotional engagement is at its peak. Experts say this level of personalization is powered by advanced data analytics, allowing companies to track user behavior and deliver messages designed to maximize engagement and spending. In many ways, this strategy mirrors techniques used in video games and tech platforms. Interaction, instant rewards, and frictionless access. The goal is simple: keep users active, betting, and coming back. At the same time, the industry has expanded behind traditional sports wagering. Prediction style platforms and alternative betting markets are gaining traction, attracting younger audiences and further broadening the reach of these aggressive media campaigns. But the rapid growth is raising concerns. Public health advocates warn that the sheer volume and sophistication of these ads may increase the risk of gambling-related harm, particularly among younger users and viewers, those who are already vulnerable. Critics point to the normalization of betting within sports media as a key factor, making gambling feel less like a risk and more like part of the game. Regulators, meanwhile, are struggling to keep pace with an industry that is evolving faster than the rules designed to govern it. For now, the message from sportsbooks is clear. Visibility is everything. And competition intensifies. As competition intensifies, the fight for customers is playing across every platform, from television to screens to smartphones, turning sports betting into one of the most aggressively marketed industries in the country. And now, sort of my analysis, I see the word risk-free, and yet being in this field as long as I have and being in among the recovery field, gambling has the highest rate of suicide of any major addiction. Unfortunately, in my career, I've seen way too many people actually either attempted or completed suicide. And yet to say risk-free doesn't make any sense to me. And as I've been watching some games over the weekend, especially on Prime, watching one of the basketball playoff games, it's almost all about gambling, constantly across the screen. Almost all the major operators are having commercials on the TV. Prior to the game, they're talking about everything and sort of making it more normalized. I'm seeing more commercials now, less with athletes, but with normal people. I couldn't believe I was watching one commercial where there was a whole family around the dinner table, grandpa, dad, and the kids, all cheering because they just won the big bet. And yesterday, probably one of the most interesting things I see is now they're bringing more things like comedy into it. I was watching a game yesterday on NBC, and during one of the commercials, Colin Jost and Michael Che, the two newscasters from Saturday Night Live, were doing a cute commercial. Now, back that up with what I've seen in terms of suicide and everything else, and to make a joke out of something, and what do these guys really need? I mean, Colin Jost is married to Scarlett Johansson. Does he need to do these kind of commercials? I mean, he should be keeping busy doing something else. Another commercial that I saw over the weekend of a normal guy in a bar talking about how he won an 18 parlay and then just says, hey, I'm buying everybody breakfast. Again, showing that, hey, you bet you're a winner, you're going to be the life of the party. I see this push for normalization, and yet there's no pushback. There's nothing that says about gambling and suicide or anything else, and everything just seems normal. And yet we in the recovery community and we in the clinical community are seeing people, families being destroyed every day. This is back to you, Deb.
Yeah, no, that is really, a hot topic at the moment. Everybody's talking about how, advertising is everywhere. It's in your face and no escape. And actually, we have one of our guests here today, Rob. Thanks for joining us. I saw your recent YouTube post, your work that you do. Uh, if anyone missed it, Rob is active, you know, in prevention, was a gambler himself, gambler in recovery himself, and is extremely passionate about getting the message across and educating everyone on what the industry are doing. Specifically this week, talking about advertising. What are your comments about that news story, Rob?
Uh, I mean, I think it's been the same story over and over again now for a while with the advertising. Um, it's just it's been disappointing to see how like in other industries the advertising is kind of you know, regulated. And in the gambling one, it feels like basically a free-for-all as long as they toss a little disclaimer on the bottom that says, you know, give us a call if you got a problem with it. So, you know, my overall feelings on the advertising is just it's been going down a very dangerous path. For example, if you look at like a Charles Schwab commercial or an investing commercial, you would see this big disclaimer that says that you might lose all of your money if you put it into this platform. But you look at a gambling commercial that it says, call us if you have a problem. There's no implication that you could ever lose any money. And I think that the expectation for a lot of people that watch these commercials is, hey, I'm going to get rich if I do this right. I can be the exception to the rule. You know, Deb? I think that's just where we're heading, unfortunately.
Right, I actually have something I wanted one of the ones I wanted to share, one of your segments, Rob. If you don't mind, if I share this, if I can. Not that I'm good at this. Let me see what I'm doing. Had all this set up and it never works the way you want it to. Okay.
That shit crazy. We're off to a hot start here. Video two, we have the FanDuel calling all Thrillionaires. What a horrible commercial. So, don't know if that's foreshadowing or not. Let's do it. Calling all. They're summoning gamblers.
Calling off, calling off, billionaires, calling off, calling off, calling off, billionaires.
I'll join a club that has rewards for everyone. I'm talking birthday for 3 daily game and other stuff that's fun.
Designed for people that love thrilling.
Who's this for?
Weekly bonus pack. Our thrills are filled up to the brim. Can you thrill me? Yeah, this is what me. You are going. Yeah. Never gonna get. That's our day.
Okay, that was crazy. I want to see if you guys caught that in a minute. This is like a cult riding into a portal to hell. That's insane. All right, so this was just a ridiculously insane
Okay.
commercial. It looks demonic. It looks like they're like transporting themselves into a portal of hell.
Oh,
This is what I think. Just looking at it, maybe I'm biased. Who knows?
right. Okay. Did that share well, Rob? I got feedback that froze for people. Did it freeze?
Yeah, I think it froze, but
Froze.
I'm happy to describe what happened in the
Yes,
commercial.
please do.
Yeah, so within that commercial, it was a FanDuel one, and it was supposed to be promoting the different kinds of inducements and rewards that you can get by playing on their platform. And essentially, the plot of the commercial is like someone's on a bike, which becomes a tandem bike chain, and it's all people pedaling towards this portal. They say it's the portal to the app itself, the portal to rewards, but it legitimately looks like this group of people chanting that they're going to be thrillionaires is pedaling into a portal to hell is was what I was basically implying. And during the commercial, there's a homeless person on the side of the street. You know, they don't look ragged, but they're holding like one of those signs on like a cardboard paper, and it says they're looking for rewards. And they get him to join the chain of people pedaling into that portal. And so I couldn't figure out who the commercial was for. I think it was just supposed to be like a shock factor kind of marketing. But I think that you know what it was to me was like, hey, let's chant and you know to drive into this horrible situation because we're all going to do it together.
Yeah, and there was another one that I saw about, was it with Kevin Hart that you called out as well? I'm
Sure,
scared to
yeah,
share now. I have it all lined up, but if it's not going to come through, I don't know if you have it handy and you can share somehow. But I really love it for it. You've got your own YouTube, you've got your own Instagram. Like if anyone's interested in Rob, Rob works daily on educating the public on what the industry are doing with advertising. Not only that, talking about the difficulties in recovery and also how to understand if you're suffering and coping with a problem gambling yourself. So if anyone doesn't hasn't seen Rob in action, you really should check him out. He's brilliant. You are brilliant, Rob. But if you want to
Thanks.
share your screen, please, uh, and I will work out how to give you those privileges and whatnot. Um,
I do have a feeling we're going to be in the same boat. I think it was a
yeah,
connection issue to the Zoom rather than,
right. Okay.
anything I might be able to solve. But I did put a link to it in the chat if anyone was interested in
Yeah,
watching.
great. So everyone can have
General
access to that.
general trigger warnings, like it is reacting to 9 gambling commercials. It was supposed to be 10, and then one of them got copyright struck. So I don't know. They just
Oh,
hate free advertising. But yeah, so trigger warning that they are gambling commercials, but we're looking at the worst aspects of them and the ways that they manipulate people into spending more money than they otherwise would have.
right. And there was a great segment done by John Oliver about advertising in the gambling industry in one of his most recent shows. That's very relevant and what we discuss about the gambling advertising here every week on SBS. So let me ask you this question. What needs to be done? Now, this is a big one. What needs to be done? Obviously, there's huge difference between what we allow in the UK. We've got Mr. Cousins here in the room. What we allow in the UK, Matt, you've worked a lot over there in policy change. You've done massive work over there with raising awareness on what the dangers of advertising, and how the gambling industry were exploiting people, vulnerable people. And we are really behind in stages of really getting the message across to parents, but to government. And so what would you say needs to be done? And this is really to everyone, but hopefully you and Rob can focus on answering this one for us.
Yeah, I think it. So the way that the gambling industry works and the commercial model that they want to try to advance is the sports is used as a way to acquire customers. So in the American context, you had fantasy sports for years and years. And fantasy sports, the two biggest providers, FanDuel, DraftKings, they actually ran at a loss for a long time. And they were just waiting really for the moment that sports betting was legalized and they would then have a head start. They'd have all the data, people that could be sports bettors. And equally, sports betting is the gateway. That's the basically the entry point to try to get iGaming. So when they started to get legal sports betting in the US after the repeal of PASPA, they made a lot of promises about how much tax revenue they generate and all of the economic benefits. And in many states, these just haven't been delivered. So the legal industry has not displaced illegal gambling in the way that was described when they were trying to advocate for legalization. And the logical next step of that is to argue, well, in order to deliver on all of these promises and to deliver on the tax revenues and to displace the black market in the way that we promised that we would, we're going to need online casino. And that's where the industry wants to end up. In the UK, the vast majority of the profits come from the online casino, in particular the online slots. The fast-paced table games like roulette and blackjack, but slots in particular, it drives the majority of the revenue, and that's where most of the harm is. In the meantime, what they're doing is turning sporting events into a kind of casino game. They're advancing lots of different or promoting lots of different really random products that are encouraging engagement like at a rapid rate throughout the sporting event. So they're trying to, I think, familiarize people with that degree of engagement that is analogous to if you were to engage with a casino product. And as well as the marketing around sports to acquire the customers, which they then cross promote the online casino. That's the general commercial strategy of the sector. And in order to do that, the direct marketing uses huge amounts of user data to profile their customers, to try to get them to engage, to target incentives and inducements at the exact time that they think that they're going to be effective. So you basically have this industry that has huge amounts of data on their users, that has very highly addictive products that have been refined and tested in basically a live laboratory, which is, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of users. And if you do manage to get an edge over the industry, over the operator, if you manage to, know more about a particular sport or a particular athlete than they do, then they are entitled to close or restrict your account. So you have no chance of winning, which runs, I think, at complete odds to how gambling is advertised. Gambling is advertised as an opportunity to try to win. And that for me is at the core of it, is that the advertising itself and the promotion of the sector is based on a deception.
And one of the things that Rob pointed out in his video as well is that, the partnership with NFL and with professional sports franchise is so insidious from a marketing point of view, because, we saw in one of the commercials you showed, Rob, this, woman surrounded by her family with a big Chiefs sweatshirt on. People love the Chiefs. I mean, they don't just love the Chiefs, they identify with that team. And that's true for every professional team. So you have this deep love and connection coupled with images of people gambling, eating, families together, rooting for the Chiefs. And if you're subjected to those images again and again, you're associating NFL football, your favorite football team, food, family, Sunday, and it just creates it lodges into your subconscious. So you think about this activity as something that's fun, innocent, and even family oriented, which is so bizarre, but effective, unfortunately.
Yeah, what we're seeing, especially with with streaming services like FanDuel, Amazon Prime, how close they are with FanDuel. It's sort of the FanDuel network. And almost everything in the pregame was all about gambling. During the game, constant odds, constantly giving people prop bets or parlays, analyzing almost at every point during the game, building in with sports commentary. And it sort of is, I'm really not sure. To me, the only person who's ever refused to do a promo during a game was Bob Costas, whereas everybody else the announcers are just reading whatever they're telling them to read and thinking that, again, here's one more layer. The sportscasters, the people I've trusted since I'm a little kid, are telling me that it's okay to gamble with absolutely no mention of any problem that can be possibly associated with. And yet we all know it. They all know it. And there's just so much money now being made by the operators, by the streaming services, and sort of going what Dan said, the merchandise. Everybody wants to, they win, they want to wear their team's stuff. It's sort of, Bob always says that they've turned the scoreboard into a roulette, into a slot machine, which I really agree with. But now I'm looking at the athletes are now like horses at a racetrack. And I can't imagine what that is being a professional athlete, of knowing that, all the pressure on yourself, are they part of it? Is it like the old days with Honus Wagner when he made them take his baseball card away because they were promoting cigarettes? And yet we see now all the players now being part of the message of showing active scenes from games during the commercials. To all those players that are on the court, are they endorsing gambling?
They've gift wrapped gambling and they present it as harmless fun in a nice package. It's not harmless fun. For some, it might be, but for a lot, it's not. And that's how it's being wrapped up in a gift bag for everybody. I'm doing this, you can do this.
Do you think that
We
it has
talked
got
about
to
before, sorry, Jared, gamble responsibly. It's your responsibility to gamble responsibly. This is harmless, but there's no word about, the dangers financially or with mental health. There's nothing that comes close to the warnings about investing in Schwab or using alcohol or cigarettes. And, those warnings need to be just much more stark and specific and big so people can understand that it's not just on them to quote unquote gamble responsibly.
Do you think that the harms have, I mean, for that kind of normalization about like it being a kind of family or social activity within the advertising, do you think that that resonates with people because the harms are not as widespread yet as they are in the UK? Because I think if they tried to advertise in that way in the UK now, it would be laughed at. It'd be ridiculous. And actually, you know, there are probably guidelines and regulations that prevent that type of advertising anyway. So is it because the sector is in its relative infancy still that they can get away with this type of advertising? And does that present challenges to like trying to affect policy change on it?
I've got something to say about that. I think that there's more to worry about with how we're different to the UK, not just with gambling harms with advertising, but the other thing that we're being allowed to get away with, which is with Kalshi and Poly markets, and not just like, you know, the amount of gambling that's going on and gambling addiction on the rise and increase there. I see it as a sort of nationwide systematic manipulation of the human mind in terms of what we are telling our children to care about and not care about, such as gambling on human life. You know, it's like a digital Roman Colosseum. You know, we are telling our young people that it's normal. We're normalizing with Kalshi. We're normalizing gambling on life and death. And for centuries, as humans, it's taken us all this time to get to understand that we're meant to care about each other. And we've done that we've got here through suffering and war, right? And now we've got this thing on our phone that's saying, you know, it's funny to laugh at like RainBet and all that. I saw that, Rob, you were talking about the ridiculous advert on RainBet itself. But just let's look at the seriousness of this. We are sending a message that it's okay to laugh at betting on human life. I don't just see gambling addiction as a gambling addiction therapist as an issue with that. Not alone. I see something way deeper going on, that us as parents, us as educators, we have a responsibility to get this message up and out loud and clear. It is not okay. This is a huge crisis in humanitarianism. Like, we have to talk about how are we different from the UK? Yeah. Can you just imagine? I can just imagine like an advert going on TV in the UK and what my family would say, what is that? It's all different. We even show the news over here differently in America, right? But to your question, what would the UK say if we were to advertise the same over there? That would be a fun experiment, wouldn't it? I think we'd have a few things to say about how we advertise.
We're fighting a war of, you know, in a way, none of what we're coming from the recovery side is showing at all, like zero. Everything is all coming from all the information. And with gambling, I always say, like, we're the most unsympathetic addicts. You know, nobody cares. You know, we're just people that can't handle our money. You know, yet, although gambling was put in the DSM-5 with drugs, alcohol, other substances, and yet we know how, you know, from a clinical point of view, where it fits in, it doesn't fit in with the model of the way people understand gambling addiction. You know, and for us, you know, there's much more of a stigma on people in recovery because they're afraid to tell people they can't handle their money. And that's the way it looks. Whereas now, you haven't made it in Hollywood unless you've had a drug or alcohol problem. But we're not seeing any of the athletes or entertainment people coming out and saying, hey, I got a gambling problem, right? And so that's what we need normalization of, that gambling is a problem. You know, the same way, you know, I know Rob's been doing a great job doing that, of being able to show that. So, I mean, Rob, what do you think about that? How have you been able to now portray that it's not normal to gamble and that there
Sure.
are problems associated with it.
Yes. Thanks, Mark, for saying that, by the way. But yeah, I think that being able to portray it's been difficult because when you look at trying to get viewership on any kind of video, you're competing with every other video that exists online. And I think that gambling content does well for a particular reason is that it's super engaging to watch. How much did they win? How much did they lose? Like there's that aspect to it. So getting viewership on the reality has been a slow build. That's why it's been quite a few years so far, building up that momentum. But I think that people don't really always want to watch videos about gambling harm and the reality of it because that might mean they have to confront what's going on in their own life. It's easier to watch a video of someone that they can't relate to than it is to watch someone that feels like they're going through exactly what they went through. But before I forget the point that I wanted to make, Deb had said we're getting away with this kind of advertising in the US. I think that's the perfect way of framing it because we can't expect any of these companies to do anything about it. Like we're all pitching these really cool ideas, these actionable things that should be done. Well, of course they should be done, but who's going to do them? Like why would FanDuel, DraftKings, RainBet, Rollbit, Roobet, Stake, whoever they may be, do anything? Like they would lose clients, right? So these commercials will be as aggressive as the law will allow them to be at all times, and the disclaimer will be as ineffective as the law will allow it to be at all times, which is sad. What is the solution, Deb, you had originally asked? It's government intervention on the federal level in terms of like advertising. I don't know if anyone knows this, but I'm sure a couple people have heard it before, but the lotteries in states are exempt from the truth in advertising law. And we basically blanket apply that to all the gambling industry in the US. So if the lottery said, hey, you will actually become a billionaire when you do one scratch off, you couldn't sue them for saying that was incorrect. They can say whatever they want to say and they're exempt legally. We kind of carry that over to the sports books as well to a certain extent. So if they said that, maybe someone would say something. But until then, they're going to tell you that winning is everything. And, until we tell them to say something else, they won't.
I think we're underestimating the fact of like right now, sports betting companies are funding a lot of keeping the companies afloat. I worked with a couple of outlets, and one of them we would have trouble getting advertising dollars.
His name is Jared Campbell.
Yeah, and so what would happen? We would get advertising. I mean, yeah, right now in the sports industry, when I was trying to work and I knew I need to get away from this, every show I'm trying to work on is being funded by a gambling company. So can you talk bad about it? No. And even more so, I've been sustaining, I've been good. I get on the Yahoo Sports app because one of my friends is getting drafted. And I know I'm clicking it correctly. They keep sending me to sports betting sites on accident because they get paid for clicks. So when you really think about it, it's one of those things where morality doesn't overweigh making money and staying afloat. So I think the dangerous part about all of this, it has to be government intervention. And then you get in this site and I'm like, wow, I'm thinking of it now with a different lens. They're basically saying, here's $150 free. Beat me. Who in their regular mind doesn't take $150 free? Do you know you're taking a drug? Do you know you're taking heroin? Absolutely not. But in the way it is being marketed, if I'm a 20-year-old kid watching a draft, getting this app, and they go, here's $150 free, it's the easiest slope to slide into this. And they don't make money from winners, so they need us. Like the fact that I've been not gambling, I'm sure somebody's like, hey, how do we get that $100,000 back? And so I know they're trying to find ways to keep the people who suck to keep going. So advertising is not made for people who are great at it. It's made for the losers. And I have been one of those ones, and I see them trying to get me back. So it's a tricky way, but they shouldn't have as much information as they do. I hate it, but it is what it is. It's the game we play.
Jared, if I can just lean in, when a gambler is in action and that money is coming your way, what goes through your mind as a gambler? And you're dabbling with the idea, and how hard is it for a gambler to resist that moment?
It's tough. I mean, one of the cool things is Rob just said, everybody loves gambling content because it gives you dopamine, and gambling help doesn't give you any dopamine. It gives you a lot of help and recovery in the long run, but it's hard dopamine. I know when I'm thinking about it, like even I had to fight myself this week. I was on AI and I was getting struggling. It was like, oh, just buy this app. It's $400 a month. In my head, I'm like, ooh, more money. How do I get more money? And I'm like, wait a minute, no. And so I do know there's a lot of pleasure. You got to rewire your brain on how you handle problems when you know you have a gambling addiction. when you know, like, hey, maybe I got to stop doing this because this could lead me to a way that doesn't help me. But I'll tell you, when you get involved, when you see that stuff and that adrenaline starts flowing, it's like trying to swim against a current of waves that are really strong. So it's very difficult. And I'm realizing for me, the key is to try to get out of the ocean. Just try not to be in the ocean. And so there, one of my brothers invited all of us to go to the basketball game, and I declined. And I was proud of myself, but it was literally a playoff game, good tickets, and I just realized I got to get out of the ocean.
I love the way you phrase that, Dan.
You know, it's super hard when you get a really good enticement and they sort of amp up the free play offers the longer you haven't been gambling. And so you get an enticement coupled with that mentality that begins to think that you have an edge or you haven't bet in a while, and then the sure things start popping up. So you only have a little, but you only have to put in a little bit of money, and then your juices are flowing, and you feel like you have a sure thing, and that's really, really tough to resist. So, you know, the goal is, and this isn't pleasant, is just to feel the FOMO. And if anything pops up on your, you know, on your algorithm or a click to get you in, you know, $200 for $5 or whatever it is, you have to avoid those marketing ploys because they work. And the longer that you know, abstain from those temptations, the less eventually they'll come, you know, but it takes some time for them to sort of dwindle off. Yeah.
Dan, could
And
I
by
say the way that I am able to avoid getting tempted by them is that I remember this mantra is that all wins are future losses. So when you go and you get that $150, like say that you win, like are you gonna close your account? You're gonna ride off into the sunset and it's gonna be rainbows and sunshine, or are you gonna say, well, now I have this, so I can bet with this. And then you're going to lose that. You're going to think, I need to get back to where I was. So you're going to redeposit, and then you're going to lose your own money, and then you're going to have to get that back, and then it's an endless cycle. So if you remember that it doesn't even matter if you win, because you're going to keep going until you lose, it helps you stay away.
A win for me just meant continued activity, period. Nothing else. It wasn't like I'm going to go buy a house or, you know, get a new car. It just was continued activity. And then if I even got the house and I say, geez, I need a boat, and then I'd lose my house trying to get the boat.
Right, well, it's what makes gambling even so much more dangerous is that there's no overdose. So we can just keep going on and on and on as long as we have money, you know. To a gambler, losing is almost as good as winning as long as we still have another bet to play in the game. It's just trying to keep us awake. And now, especially during the game, there's sort of this synergistic effect that if you really think about it like this, A, some people are just addicted to their cell phone and social media, and they have a gambling problem, and their team is either winning or losing during the game. And it's sort of this triple event that just keeps people of not being able to make really good decisions. You know, we know the way the brain works is, you know, the executive functioning, the brakes don't work. And they are, you know, we're just freewheeling and we'll give up everything until, you know, we run out of money. And then all that stuff comes back and then sort of creates that cycle. The amazing thing about gamblers is, or the same thing probably with drug addicts or alcoholics is, we'll always figure out how to get money. We are beyond motivated to get money. And and they know that no matter how broke we just lost everything, we'll figure out the next day how to get money and gamble. We become like these superhuman beings. And they know that and they feed off it because of this constant need, you know. It all basically, that's when they're telling people to go gamble responsibly. Well, to us, it's more about escape. And, you know, the escape is more important than the responsibility.
I think it's
Piggybacking,
really,
go for it,
sorry.
go for it, Matt.
Thanks. And I think it's really hard as well now because I've just seen on Substack, for example, if you write something about whatever politics and you can select whether you want the prediction markets to be within the article, embedded in the article. Everything is becoming like gambling is and odds and the gamification of like events you were talking about earlier. It's becoming so pervasive. It's everywhere. And it's really, really difficult to switch off from it, particularly if you're early into recovery. There's so many triggers everywhere. So if you do want to take that step where you want to quit, I think being mindful of like just how ubiquitous and how like prevalent gambling advertising is and the prompts and incentives to gamble and putting all of the barriers in place. Obviously, I've set up Gamban, and there's other things you can do. Switch off gambling ads on your social media, wherever they come up. There's just got to be a recognition, I think, up front that anything in any context. Now, even Substack, you go and read something on Substack and you're going to see a trigger to gamble, right? So it's just very, very difficult to get away from. So just building in that friction between the urge to gamble and the action of gambling is more important than ever.
And on the back of that, just considering that there might be some gamblers in action in the room trying to hold back, which is why we created this space, one of the reasons, advertising everywhere. Dan, if you are someone trying not to gamble, what should you understand about triggers and how they affect the brain? And then what can we do about those triggers?
Well, in drug treatment, it's about avoiding the bar. And if you're smoking weed, to get all the bongs out of the house and to get all of the paraphernalia out. So fundamentally, it's identifying what those triggers are and then, not exposing yourself to them. That's why Gamban and other blockers are so powerful. It's more challenging, though, because the gambling exists on the phone. So you have a digital casino. So you can't throw away your phone like you could throw away a pipe or a bong or something like that. It's really being aware when you're edging towards gambling behavior, particularly the desire to chase, when you have that sort of edginess, that twitchiness, where you haven't gambled for a while and you're clear what gambling has done, and you have felt the acute pain of a big loss. But the pain dissipates, and then you not become lazy exactly, but you become a little less vigilant about not gambling. And that's where it can kind of trickle in a little bit. You might be missing your GA meeting. You might be late for a therapy session or kind of not going to the group. You find yourself kind of adrift a little bit. And there's a sort of inkling that gambling is going to come back, even if those days you're not in action. So when you're kind of in that adrift period, it's so important to make sure you're going to the Monday night group, to make sure that you're going to the Sunday project, to call your sponsor if you have one, to say, I'm feeling a certain kind of way. If you find yourself looking at gambling material on YouTube, even if it's a game that you don't typically play, if you do sports, but you're paying attention to poker or you're watching someone lose, and you're playing a lot of video games, you kind of have this sense that it's coming to pass. And then inevitably you'll get a credit card bill or you'll get some sort of financial bad news that kind of makes you feel like, oh man, I kind of really need to gamble. I need to recoup some money. I need some immediate cash. And that's when you think, well, I'm just going to gamble once. I'll make a quick 500. I'll get this, this, and this, and then I'll be out. We know that you won't be out. Once you start gambling again, inevitably, if you have gambling disorder, it's going to escalate to a gambling episode. And that's what we're trying to prevent. That's why this program is really important. Let's not gamble for Sunday. Let's talk about Monday through Saturday. Let's start taking chunks of time and breaks away from it. So you're not triggered to gamble. Then, of course, there's the emotional reason why people gamble. They're feeling sad or they're lamenting the mistakes they've made, regret, painful rumination about past gambling losses, and that kind of can get you right back into action because gambling does provide a quick, quote unquote, solution to the losses, the hope that you can recoup the losses. But as Rob said, if you bet and you win, you're not going to keep the money. And that's a distortion. It's a distortion to think that you can gamble, win, and get out. It just never happens like that. Not once in the history of me treating people with gambling addiction.
And
Jared,
Jared,
I wonder what's your take on that?
So I was just going to add to that as well. I think one of the things you tell yourself is, I'll only gamble a little bit. I'll just bet this amount, this small amount. And that's also a very convincing lie that you can tell yourself to then re-engage. But the reality is, once you've started gambling, your entire cognitive functions are distorted again. And it's a bit like having an alcoholic drink or something, right? You're going to make different decisions. Your judgment's going to be different to if you hadn't had a drink. So I think that's it, getting you to have the first bet and getting you to convince yourself that that first bet or that, those few bets are going to be okay. That's the biggest risk. And that's what you've got to prevent. You've got to prevent any re-engagement. Otherwise, you're going to be back to the place that you were mentally.
That's absolutely right. That being said, if you do have a slip and a small one, arrest the development of that slip into something worse. And that means you want to text someone like me or Deb or Mark or, text your therapist so you can address it early on. And most certainly don't lie to anyone about what you did. That lie after the slip or relapse is the really painful part. That's when it starts turning into something Rob in the video said diabolical. It's not quite diabolical, but it's diabolical light. When you're gambling and lying and covering up, that's when the disorder really gets its tentacles into you. So show up to the group, address the slip early on so it doesn't morph into something terrible.
And Jared, I just want to lean into Jared for a second because Jared, you haven't been shy at all in being so vulnerable and open to everybody about that you're actively really working on your recovery, and you show up every week here and you talk about it and you share. So I want to ask you, because as we know, in the early stages of recovery, those urges are raw and ripe. And we're talking about triggers today. Have you recently been are you aware of your triggers? What are your triggers? What do you do when you're feeling triggered?
It's difficult. I will say that. What I'm seeing more now than ever is like things that used to give me a lot of joy don't give me the same amount of joy. So I don't know if my just dopamine reactors have expired and I think the hard part about this is like when I'm surrounded at GA by other gamblers, I feel a sense of greatness. When I go on these meetings, I feel a sense of greatness. But then you get around regular people, and I can tell that I'm struggling. Everybody's watching the game in the background, and I know that I'm not fully present the way I want to be because there is this depressed, dopamine-driven thing going on, and I'm feeling like I'm dealing with it by myself, and no one understands. I was out with friends, and they were having fun, but for some reason, going out didn't feel like it used to. And so I'm aware now of like, man, these are times when I would pull my phone out and just completely escape and be gambling until I know I no longer have money. But now I have to fight just to enjoy basic moments. And hopefully this passes. I mean, obviously I haven't got far enough to know, like, hopefully when I get to Mark and Bob's stage, well, I'm like, that doesn't go away. But judging from the fact that they're still here and actively helping, this might be a lifelong consequence of my overindulging in this poison. But yeah, it's still a fight. At Stop Betting Sports has been an amazing tribute, and honestly, it's starting to show. I've been working out, my body's getting better. All these things are going great for me, but still, this life without gambling is a tough life, and I'm fully aware of that now.
I'd like to just like jump something that we really don't talk about what Jared is just talking about now. And that's the scariest part is addiction, and especially gambling addiction or gambling disorder. It's a chronic disease. It's a disease we have for the rest of our lives. I still go to meetings because I don't want to gamble that I could stop gambling without going to meetings. And every person that crosses that line, there's no way back. And what I'm seeing now, especially a couple of things, in terms of sports betting, the prognosis is worse than a casino gambler because it's always there. It's always in your face. There's always those odds. There's always those triggers. But once somebody catches this disease, that's the part I really don't understand about all these influences and everything else. It's for the rest of your life. The people I know who are successful are people who go to meetings for the rest of their lives. Those that don't struggle. And it's something that needs to be constantly treated, going against marketing that says you really don't even have a problem. I've never seen as much relapse. And the one thing I really want to point out that was just mentioned before is I've been going to meetings for 43 years. I've never seen somebody shamed on a relapse. And I hope people realize that. those people who have difficulty, they don't want to go to they don't want to go to a meeting or call their therapist because they just relapsed. I've never seen that shame put on anybody other than saying, hey, you got a lot of courage to admit that. And I'm really glad you're back and you haven't created as many bad problems. So let's figure out what was going on, what made you relapse, and what changes do you need to make in your recovery. Recovery is a lifetime deal.
Bob, I go to you because you are, so I see you're about to, I go to you because you are someone incredibly avid in attending your GA meetings regularly. And I've seen you in action talking to all these young men. And as you've said, you've got 18-year-olds and 19-year-olds turning up on a Friday night saying that they're suicidal because of gambling, but you are there for them. I've seen you in action talking to them, coaching them, helping, and you yourself in all these years attending GA. So, Lloyd, what would you like to add to that?
Adding on to this, the importance of meetings, I've never seen anybody that's gone out after being in GA and coming back and say, guys, you got to get out there. It's incredible. I have never, ever seen somebody just get out there, man. But the thing is, the story, gambling has changed the story. The story is now the bet. The game is just a prop, and people are being sucked in that way. But, young kids, listen, there's a guy that came to a meeting a few weeks ago who was going to kill himself. And he now has 59 days in his program. And that's a miracle. Just, you got to keep coming back. You got to hang out with people who kind of understand you. And that's the value of this thing. And these young kids, there's a strong freshman class building in GA right now, which is very exciting to me.
I think it's so important that people like you, Bob, who've been going regularly, are showing leading role models in why this is important and how this works. You're holding yourself accountable, keeping a new routine, and also the power of the group, and hearing other people's situations and being able to listen and go, you know what? Wow, I thought I had it bad. You've got it worse. And having those feelings and feeling what you're feeling, because gambling disorder actually just stunts the brain in such a way that you stop feeling. So going to places like GA and listening to other people's real life lived experiences is healing in itself. But I've seen you, Bob, and I've seen you wrap your arms around people that are just on the floor and giving that hope. That hope is everything that is needed and necessary. And I know that you yourself are someone that is actively like a coach to these young men. So I want to say to you, Bob, thank you, Bob. Thank you for being you. Yeah. And Matt, the app that you created, just even always comes to my mind where your passion, sticking with that passion and what you have grown and created that has saved lives. Gamban, if you want to know what Gamban is, folks, Gamban is an app. You can check out our website as well. I've got Matt's app on there, but you can download the app on your phone and it will block. In fact, you say it, but Matt, why am I trying to talk about what you've done?
Thanks so much. So if you want to block gambling on your devices, Gamban blocks, at the last count, 480,000 gambling websites and apps globally, and it's designed to be difficult to remove. And if you want to download it, you can. It works on every device, and let me know what you think. I'll put my details in the chat, so if you've got any thoughts or any feedback, we'd be really happy to hear it. We've got over 100,000 active users at the moment, and obviously our user base is growing a lot in the US. So I think prediction markets are the next big driver of our subscriptions, unfortunately. I think lots of people are going to get addicted to that. And I just think the conflation between Robinhood and some of the frictionless trading apps and the predictions and, some of these gambling style products that are not necessarily regulated as gambling, that's a big problem too. And Gamban blocks all of those, not just sports betting, everything.
Yeah. Matt, I like what you did with Whatnot now, and platforms like that are really helpful.
Yeah, no, thanks. Yeah.
Um, Rob, I actually wanted to come back to you to there you go, to ask you with regards to advertising and the crisis. I feel like, not feel, but we're in a crisis with Cauchy right now. We've seen that news story with that soldier, you know, a soldier. I don't know if he was in the Marines, was he, or but a soldier recently got caught um, using the prediction markets to make money on life and death again. And you know, what do we need to do? What's next for you? Because you're really big in prevention and advocacy. What needs to happen? What do we need to do as a nation?
Sure. I think the first step is getting enough people to care, to be honest, because there's solutions, but solutions without any kind of support behind them won't ever get put into place. So I think that the thing that we need to do is make the general public aware of what kind of tactics and manipulations the gambling industry employs and basically get them pissed off about it. Because if they get to be at this point, the general public, where they understand that this company is taking advantage of people to make money, then we'll see something similar to what happened with tobacco. We'll see Congress start to have pressure on them to make changes because their constituents are pressuring them. But like, what does that look like practically? I think it looks like a really, really big investment in counter messaging. Because right now I'm sitting in the second bedroom in my apartment. You're looking at my entire production. Like, this is what I got. And we're looking at companies that have billion-dollar budgets per year when you add them all together. And so what we need, even if it's just at first a drop in the ocean, is some investment into putting out messages that say, what is actually the truth. And so Matt and I have been workshopping an idea for a while, and it's almost done. We I can't show you yet because the website's still got like a bunch of placeholders in it, so it would look really goofy. But it's called the Gambling Truth Project, and it's going to resemble what the Truth Campaign did for tobacco. So when I say, "Do you remember the Truth Campaign?" everyone usually remembers that one video where the woman has to talk out of the hole in the side of her neck because she had gotten lung cancer, emphysema as a result of smoking. We're not looking to maybe go the route of scare tactics, but that method of getting a lot of money to do counter messaging and advertising that's what the goal is basically going to be. And so, if enough groups start doing that and people start caring, I think the solution naturally steps forward is, hey, we got to start restricting and regulating this group from taking advantage of people. But we have to
Yeah.
care first.
One of the things that's worked really well in the UK in terms of advocacy is elevating the voices of affected others. And I think, the families that have been impacted, the people that have been, perhaps indirectly affected by someone else's gambling, particularly bereaved families. So I think the link between gambling and suicide is, I think it's broadly understood that, some people who get addicted to gambling may take their own lives. I think that it is more acutely the case in gambling addiction than it is in other addictions, including substance addictions. I think that link has become much more, I think, cemented in the public consciousness in the UK, that gambling itself, not just the consequences of someone's gambling, but actually the activity of gambling and what it does to your, as Jared was talking about, your dopamine system and everything, how it affects your mental health, can increase the risk of suicide. And there's a brilliant charity called Gambling with Lives, and they have been a voice for bereaved families, who have been impacted by gambling harm, gambling-related suicide. And there's a particular advocate called Annie Ashton, whose husband, Luke Ashton, took his own life. And he was bombarded with offers and emails. And when he tried to take a break from gambling, they were trying to send him incentives and inducements to try to get back on the particular gambling site. And in his inquest, gambling was ruled as a cause of his suicide. And I think that is a really powerful thing to articulate or convey to the public, the risk of that, and how it can, obviously it's not how someone can go from just not being engaged with gambling at all to that point of taking their own life, and the devastation that causes, his children, his wife, all the people that they leave behind. And Unfortunately, there will be people that end up in that place in the US, and the families will be there needing help to pick up the pieces.
How
You know,
young do you think how young do you think we should start educating people about the risk of gambling? I know, like with the DARE program, they were honest. Like before I really knew what cigarettes were, they let me know it's bad. So when it comes to you, and I almost feel like that's the way we have to approach gambling addiction. By the time you get a chance, you can watch sports, but just know gambling is very dangerous, and you should learn that at 9, 10 years old, rather than you finding that out after you have an addiction.
I think, and even with DARE, like almost every study said that even though it helped a little, it was probably not the most successful, that we can come up with better programs now for kids than DARE. And I say the younger the better. And just teach them two things. Teach them how money works and how odds work, and then let them figure it out themselves. Or as parents, I think I talked about it last week, finding teachable moments. Like what's that going across the screen? That's for suckers, that's taking away from the game. Or don't win that prize at the carnival or whatever, I think parents have a lot of ways of the younger the better, I think they hit. But just going back to, I've been around a long time and saw what they've done with cigarettes. And to me, it's probably one of the greatest success stories of when I was growing up as a kid, half the people smoked. You could smoke anywhere. And after they stopped advertising and ending all advertising and giving up, you can't give away free cigarettes anymore or anything. We've seen cigarettes go from like 50% to I think 15 or 16%, especially among gamblers. At the end of 12-step meetings, everybody was smoking. Now you hardly ever see anybody smoke anymore. So there are things that can be done right now. And I think it's more of remove the marketing. I don't think we'd ever be able to compete with the marketing as much as taking it away and taking away the incentives of comps, because that's the other part in sports that we don't see. I think I've mentioned it before. We might see, you can understand how you're going to get a limousine to a casino, but not free bets, and how these operators are just constantly sucking people in.
Just to react to some folks in our audience, we have some chat going on. We actually don't we don't share on it. We don't talk directly to our audience, but we've got a couple of people suggesting that third grade is when we should be teaching our children in schools, and also parents standing together. We've got Kim Freudenberg here in the house today. She's here and reminded me about RainBet, that all the kids are betting on using RainBet. Wanted us to discuss that as well. But regards to raising awareness, right? Like raising awareness starts here. It starts with people like us. It starts with platforms like this. It starts with Rob Minnick. It starts with Bob Gray. It starts with us, everyone here in the room. We have to do something about this. And I have every belief that we can. With the what you've actually achieved, Matt, is incredible. What you are about to do, Rob, is incredible. I really want to know more about what you're doing with your fight with policy change, raising awareness, and absolutely is like the smoking industry. This thing is going to stop our children having retirement funds. We need to tell our parents what's going on. It's really important. Parents standing together. If you want to know, we can put in the chat as well. Kim, did you put your link in there? If you are a parent of a child you think is gambling or struggling with gambling or might be addicted, please reach out to Parents Standing Together if you're struggling, and get some support. There are groups. Kim runs groups and educates parents on being affected in that way, as we do. Yes, and it is absolutely down to people like us to raise awareness and educate. And I'm very keen to watch you develop that, Rob. Please come here regularly and tell everybody exactly what you're doing and how you're doing that. I also wanted to let everyone know, way ahead of time, there was apparently over 100 people trying to get in the room here today. And we will fix those. We had some technical glitches, but we will fix that and manage that better next time. So please continue to write in the chat. I can see that you can all see each other's links and questions and comments, and that's great. Mark, I think you had something just now to say.
I'm okay.
Okay. Rob, back to you. Could you tell me a little bit more about the next steps for your organization and what that
Sure.
looks like?
The first step was to exist, which is easier said than done with the IRS. But following that, we're now filing 501c3 status so that we can become like a formal nonprofit. The website is about 80% done. There is the need to go out and start raising money, the money being for, pushing commercials out on television, radio, internet. We're halfway through writing our first PSA. The PSA is basically currently someone walking through a carnival setting with it's a husband and wife, and the wife is like, I want to play this carnival game or this game, and the husband's like, no, those games are for suckers. And then there's a sports betting kiosk at the end, and he thinks that's different. So that's the premise of the commercial thus far. We're still working on it, but the goal will be to push it out pretty much within the initial goal is going to be within Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York markets, just because that's where I live. So it's just like I know the ability to do that, but you never know where we're going to end up pushing it out. We should be up and running, I think, by May 15th with everything except the commercial, and happy to update as we go. The secondary goal, of course, that I didn't mention is that we want to get gambling addiction treatment like standard codified by insurance companies, because right now it's like you have to fight tooth and nail to get gambling treatment covered by an insurance company. And then even if you do, it's usually like a co-occurring. So treatment centers aren't really incentivized to give gambling treatment because of what they have to bill for insurance companies. So if it was treated by those companies the same way that drug and alcohol treatment is, more people would be able to get insurance to cover their treatment. More treatment centers would make more money, I guess, from insurance companies. So they would kind of want to open is the idea. And so those are the two goals.
Rob, congratulations. I know how I feel hearing all of that. Please let us know what we can do at Stop Betting Sports to support you. 100% behind you. All of us here are, and also a lot of our audience in the room have been returning every week because they want to sort of, hear and also asking how to help. It does start with us. It does start with us, real people, spending time on a Sunday morning or whenever we get together to do this, and advocacy and outreach and really raising awareness. We're just basically like a big fat megaphone, and I'm bringing my East London accent all the way here to Los Angeles to shout because I have a big mouth. And I feel very strongly about what's going on, as you do, Rob. And Dan, you are one of the most giving therapists I've ever met. You are on the shop floor helping people struggle, really struggle every single day. I don't think you take a day off. And if anyone in here feels really strongly about seeing people getting better, it's you. How do you feel about what Rob's doing and his movement?
I feel it's so needed, and I am taking Saturdays off now, so I do get the Sabbath, but yeah, it's that level of passion and purpose behind this, that this is a really serious public health crisis, and there's not enough of us doing what we need to do, and I feel a calling to have the megaphone and to do something in the prevention space, since I've been in the treatment space for so long. And so having this meeting on Sundays, and then we've been going to Palisades High School and Santa Monica High School, and actually being able to talk to young people. And I agree, Jared, that it should be 9, 10, elementary school as well. But I want to, have a voice in prevention as well. And in addition to doing the treatment, which has been, a program of, over 3 years, less than 100 people, but really touching those 100 people. That's what people don't understand. You can develop so willy-nilly and quickly a gambling addiction through a big win, or your parents seeing your parents gambling, or the genetic predisposition with just the right amount of sports betting. You can develop an addiction very quickly. It can morph into iGaming and real catastrophic losses, but it really is heavy lifting to treat, as Jared was describing. And it is treatable. People do get better, like many people I've worked with, but it's a tough go. So I want to prevent people from losing a lot of money, losing their 20s in this addiction, and facing, financial and mental health, real consequences. So that's what I'm all about. So I thank you, Deb, and everyone that's coming to this webinar on Sundays.
Dan, what you just said about consequences, that's the word that is never used. And, I think something that immediately could be put into action are these influencers and endorsers with all this fame. Kids look up to these people and they trust them. And with trust, it lowers their guard, and they don't understand the risk. This is a great example, I nicknamed this LeBron James and Kevin No Heart, and he's trying to say, what do you mean kids can't control it? And Kevin's talking about, yeah, this kid had your autograph. He sold it for $100. Everybody would kill for your autograph, and he lost it on a game. Influence has to come with accountability and responsibility, and a public service announcement, by anybody of influence with a big microphone, that would be incredibly helpful to let people know, God, wait a minute, there's another side to this. They used to endorse Gatorade. This is not a product. This is behavior. They're influencing behavior. And that's really, really dangerous.
I'll stop that one. Okay. We've come to the end of our Sunday project. Thank you, everybody, for attending today. I want to say, if you haven't already, if you're on Instagram or TikTok, please find us, Stop Betting Sports, and add us, and you'll see our stories. There they are, popping up in the chat. If you are a parent of a gambler trying to help them, parents standing together, please visit that Facebook page and add them there, and you'll see everything that Kim is doing over there on that side. If you need some help with prevention, please download the Gamban app, or just tell everybody about it, everybody that you know about the Gamban app that might know a gambler who's struggling. We're here and we're ready. I hope everyone got that message. Thank you again, and we'll see you next week.